In today's biased news, UPS prepares for a massive strike. Heat waves scorched the US and Europe. And the US dollar is on the decline. UPS has threatened a 10-day strike, which could be the costliest in at least a century, potentially exceeding $7 billion. Currently, UPS handles a quarter of US parcels across the entire nation, ranging from Amazon deliveries to medications. Despite the critical importance of UPS workers for the American public, talks between the company and the International Brotherhood of Teamsters Union are deadlocked, leaving the demands of 340,000 UPS workers unmet. The contract limit is July 31st. After then, if the union's demands are not met, they will go forward with the strike, which could paralyze supply chains and be immediately felt across the country. Demands include pay raises for part-time workers, which account for roughly half of UPS staff. The company continues to try to bring the union back to the negotiating table, but union officials stated that if UPS wants to bargain, they have to bring better terms, citing that employees put their own health on the line throughout the pandemic as the company generated record profits. Meanwhile, in Britain, pay raises of at least 6% for millions of public sector employees have been won following months of strike action. Notably, though, the highest increase went to prison staff and police, in a very transparent move by the ruling establishment. In addition, this is below Britain's 8.7% inflation rate, and is therefore not a real raise. British Prime Minister Sunak said, "This is a significant pay award. It's one of the most significant we've had in decades, and it's costing billions of pounds more than the government had budgeted for, and that has consequences." Aside from the pathetic guilt-tripping of the people in society who do all the work, Unite Union General Secretary Sharon Graham stated, quote, "The government is putting its departments between a rock and a hard place. They now have to choose between paying workers a half-decent salary or cutting services in already underfunded public services." End quote. Junior doctors are still receiving a pay cut even after this offer, and will continue to strike following this action. All this proves is that striking and suspending work is the only language the capitalist class understands, and even then, whatever you get is a limp concession that can and will eventually be done away with to the benefit of profit and against the interests of the vast majority of society. You feeling hot? Join the club. Heat waves have been scorching the entire world. Nearly 100 million Americans are facing a prolonged stretch of sweltering weather this week, and Europe was subjected to a fierce heat wave on Thursday, with a warning that temperatures could hit record highs for the continent next week, raising fears about the impact on human and animal health and agriculture. Climate change continues to wreak havoc on our weakened ecosystems, and the people who caused it remain safe, cool, and ever more wealthy. The dollar has reached its lowest level since April 2022, following declining US inflation. The dollar index fell 0.8% to a 15-month low. The euro rose 0.9% to a 16-month high, while the Swiss franc saw the dollar plunge to an 8-year low. The markets are readjusting to the post-COVID Ukraine war shock treatment. As much as Wall Street types clutch their pearls over these changes, normal working people will be the ones who continue to bear the brunt of the suffering. A union representing about 160,000 Hollywood actors is going on strike after talks with major studios and streaming services have failed. This is the first time its members have stopped work on movie and television productions since 1980, after a final day of negotiations on Wednesday did not produce an agreement. No matter the industry, union organizing, even within the confines of capitalism, can win back significant value stolen by bosses. Indian Prime Minister Modi was invited as the guest of honor at France's Bastille Day parade. The visit marks 25 years of partnership in areas like civil nuclear, space, and defense cooperation. Critics in France question the invitation due to Modi's right-wing and anti-Muslim stances, especially at a time when France has seen the greatest civil unrest over ethnic and class discrimination in decades. Russian lawmakers on Friday voted in favor of a bill to make gender reassignment illegal. The lower house said in a statement, quote, "The State Duma banned gender reassignment in Russia," adding that political parties had voted to introduce the new laws unanimously. War always makes for a good opportunity to pass reactionary legislation, and all parties involved in the Ukraine conflict have moved swiftly to do so. According to Ukrainian generals and the Pentagon, Ukraine has received US cluster munitions. Brigadier General Tarnovsky said on CNN, quote, "We just got them. We haven't used them yet, but it can radically change the battlefield." If by change the battlefield he means make huge areas of land a death trap for their own citizens for decades, he's absolutely right. It's worth noting that cluster munitions are banned in over 100 UN countries. And to finish with some positive news, according to the UN, it's possible that we'll see the end of AIDS by 2030 if countries demonstrate the political will to invest in prevention and treatment and adopt non-discriminatory laws. This would have been done much earlier in a not-for-profit driven world economy, but hey, we'll take what we can get. The end of a heavily stigmatized disease that has ravaged populations around the world would be monumental. That's all for today. We'll be back on Monday with more news. If you missed them, be sure to check out our previous episodes by following the links on your screen. As always, you can support the show and get the news in text form a few hours early by becoming a patron at patreon.com/firstthought.